Shalom, beloveds. This is Initiation into Yoga, Chapter 7, Superstition. A blooper of a bleeper. Superstition. The Ishopanashat mentions two movements of thought, which it terms Vidya and Avadaya, respectively. Surprisingly, enough too many, it affirms that an exclusive clinging to either of these two modes lands us in deep darkness. Into blind darkness go they who cling to Avidaya alone, but into even greater darkness, as it were, go they who cling to Vidya alone. It is not intended to enter on a discussion of the root meaning of these two terms, conventionally translated as knowledge and ignorance, but to point out that one among the many pairs of opposites in which they manifest is a pair we may describe as superstition and merely rational enlightenment. Let us take an example at random from the countless beliefs that constitute the web of religion. Hindus hold that bathing in the Ganga purifies from sins and are therefore given to the habit of regular ceremonial bathings, particularly at especially holy centers such as Benares. While such ritual bathing is quite universal among the Orthodox, few, when asked, can give any rational explanation to the efficacy of the rite, but are content to say that it has been taught in the scriptures and therefore should be performed. Such performance of a rite without knowledge of its meaning may be termed superstition, a mode of Abadaya, and undoubtedly the superstitious man remains in darkness. Over against such an attitude of blind acceptance of what has been taught arises another, one which may also be found within the Hindu fold, but which is more markedly presented among the more rationalistic Buddhists, who indeed are in the habit of referring to Hindus as Turkikas, or bathers. This second attitude consists in subjecting the practice in question to the fire of an ethical, intellectual criticism, and in rejecting it because of its apparent inability to satisfy such ethical intellectual canons. Thus, with regard to this practice of bathing in the Ganga, such critics will point out that physical entities like water cannot interact with moral entities like sin, that if Ganga water purified from sin, then fishes and crocodiles would be purified by living in it, that there is no evidence to show that such purification is actually brought about, and finally, that it is a mischievous doctrine, leading people to go on sinning in the fancied security of being able to wash it away with another bath. This is the mode of merely rational enlightenment, a mode of Vidya, and it leads to even greater darkness. The Upanishad goes on to tell that the two modes must be united by Avadaya crossing over death, and Vidya deathlessness is attained. Before attempting to see how this synthesis or fusion of opposites is to be achieved, we may note two false approaches. The first is what may be termed the electric or pseudoscientific. For instance, many years ago, doctors discovered that Ganga water contained small creatures that they portentously termed bacteriophagi, creatures which have the useful property of eating up disease germs and so keeping the water fresh and wholesome. This fact was no doubt known to our ancestors, our ancient rishis, uh, who therefore taught the religious efficacy of bathing in the ganja. The bacteriophagy are a fact. Their connection with physic and spiritual purification is not obvious. The second method is even worse. It consists in keeping the two modes in watertight compartments. The rational criticism is adopted. In fact, it is even paraded, but the superstitious practice is kept on all the same in order to please the womenfolk. The first method is a real attempt, though a confused one, at reconciliation. The second disrupts the unity of the psyche, thus destroying sincerity. Before we go any further, however, let us first see if, apart from the Upanishad statement, there is any harm in not attempting a synthesis at all. Why not go on with the superstition, continue to bathe in the ganja in simple faith without worrying about the rationalistic criticism? That is all right, so long as the rational criticism has not come to our ears or made itself felt by us. Once its voice has penetrated to our consciousness, it is impossible for the simple faith to continue as before. We can forcibly shut out or repress the voice, but it will be there in our hearts all the same. Thus, and psychic unity and its resilient sincerity will be destroyed. Once having heard, we cannot unhear. We must answer. Well, then, why not accept the criticism and give up the superstition altogether? This is what is often done by people of what may be termed the Protestant type of mind. The results, however, are quite peculiarly disastrous. For what is literally a spiritual blindness set in which leaves the world darker than any darkness of superstition. Moreover, the blindness is apt to set in so gradually that by the time it is complete, we forget that we ever had powers of vision, that a state of light ever existed. For it is not just one superstition that is involved, but a whole way of life. And it and the result is that the whole world is emptied of gods. From earth and water, from air and fire, the gods take flight. Nothing divine is left anywhere, and even the sun himself becomes to our vision a mere ball of burning gas, spluttering away above us in an empty sky. Divinity is chased away to some remote heaven beyond all possibility of that sacramental contact which alone can give significance to life. But who but a beast would care to dwell in a world which all the gods have left? Let us then return to the starting point and see if the disastrous uh, antinomy, uh, uh, antinomy, and antinomy cannot be avoided there. By bathing in the ganja, we are purified from sin. How can merely material water purify us from psychic sin? But is water merely material? Is there any such thing as merely material? Are not all things the dwelling place of spirit? Surely we must admit that when we bathe, we are refreshed in spirit, and such refreshment is a psychic experience which could not be brought about by mere matter. The truth is that ganja is not just a stream of water, but an embodied spirit born from the feet of Narayana, the dweller in the waters. We do not dispute the truth as far as they go on of the map makers' statements about the source of all that they can see and mark on a map, the source of what they know of the river Ganges. But such statements are only partial. The real source of a book is to be found in the author's mind. The printer's account of it in terms of cloth, paper, and ink is only external. The book is a spirit. A book is a spirit dwelling in the form of ink and paper. By plunging into it, we can be transported out of ourselves. Surely an astonishing result to be caused by mere black marks on white paper. If the heart can be purified by plunging into the pages of a book, why can it not be purified by plunging in the waters of a river? Such purification, however, depends on whether we can read what is written on the paper or what is written in the waters. In other words, upon whether we can use the material form as a means of establishing contact with the mind of its author. That's deep. The author is both cases, and the author in both cases is spirit, and just as the spirit of a man dwells in the pages of a book, so does the spirit of God dwell in the waters of a river. If the former can purify and elevate our hearts, so undoubtedly can the latter. Purusha and Prakriti, spirit and matter, are forever blended in the tissue of the world. Nowhere is there anything which is matter alone, nor is there anything which is spirit alone. He who seeks only matter sees only matter anywhere. For him, all things are dead and powerless. He who seeks also the living spirit sees spirit in all things. All things are full of gods. All things are living powers. All things have their effect upon the living spirit of man. But why ganja particularly? This is a question that is sure to be asked. Why not any stream? There is a proverb to the effect that for him whose heart is strong, a tub of water can serve as ganja. Nevertheless, all hearts are not equally strong, and therefore all ancient peoples, all those who lived in the same world as gods, selected one or more rivers, just as they selected one or more books as scriptures, on account of their grandeur, fertilizing power, or central position to be excellence, their sacred waters. Such, among many others, were the Hindu Ganga, the Egyptian Nile, and the Jewish Jordan. Nevertheless, it is well known that in the Himalayas all streams are called Ganga. Perhaps it will be said that all this is very well for subtlety spinning philosophers. What about the simple folk who reck little of Purusha and Prakriti, and to whom the river is just a river? We reply that the sophisticated skeptic knows little and understands nothing of what is passing in the heart of the simple and inarticulate. Much is known of the heart that cannot be expressed, much that is almost entirely forgotten in the course of an education which concerns itself with learning to express quite other things. One thing is certain, namely, that to the simple hearted, a river is most emphatically not just a river. We cannot conclude better than with the words of the same Upanishad. My life, my life breath to the immortal wind of the spirit. My body ends in ashes. Yet life is found in the embrace of both. That which affects the one affects the other. The golden serpent of eternity has its own tail within its mouth. And that is the end of chapter 7, Superstition.